He, Mandy, and the kids, we got lunch at McAdoo's one February afternoon, and the rest is history, and I'm still here. So, but I want to just kind of give you an idea on my journey with North Star, especially just over the past couple of years and what my life looks like because of North Star. So I grew up in a very small town in northeast North Carolina, Gates County, and I grew up in a very strong Christian family unit, which I'm extremely grateful for. And I grew up in a strong biblical church, or at least that's the way I perceived it. And I'm grateful for how my parents were very discerning on what they shared with me within the church, quote unquote politics, just because I came out of high school with a very good and solid view of what the local church should be. So I went to school at Virginia Tech. I graduated in 2011, and I met Meghan in 2012. We actually met at one of those pictures, a Halloween block party, our very first one. She came as Rosie to the River, which is, in hindsight, right on. Love you. No, she's very strong, very determined, perseveres through anything. So, yeah. Anyway, and we started dating the following January, February. And we got engaged, and our relationship and our engagement, like I'm sure most people, it wasn't all perfect. We had a lot of growing that both of us had to do, and through the counsel of Dave and Mandy, going through pre-marriage counseling, looking back, it was a very defining moment in my walk with Christ, having a solid couple come alongside of us and help us navigate the waters of marriage. So 2 years ago, or 2 years later, we had our first daughter, Meghan, 2 years ago now. Once we had her and we got settled in, Meghan and I were talking this past week, like, things got fairly easy. Things were moving along. We had built our ideal life fairly quickly. It wasn't planned like that. It's just kind of how it happened. And about 1 year ago today, it's funny how when you get comfortable, God starts knocking. And so Jesus was knocking, and we had this overwhelming, love you, James. We had this overwhelming burden on our hearts. It was one of those things that you just can't not think about it. And that calling was on our hearts for a while. And at the beginning of October of last year, Dave preached a sermon series called How to Neighbor. Some of you may remember that. Why am I crying? The second week was on foster care and adoption, and that's what had been weighing on our hearts so heavily. So we knew that it was something that we had to pursue, and we didn't really know what that looked like. We knew that when God puts something on your heart, you just ask questions. That's all you have to do to start, is just start asking questions. So we did. We started asking questions, and then a couple months later, our family of 3 grew to a family of 4. Koa came into our lives in January. He was a 1-week-old baby, and we were incredibly grateful that finally I've been pursuing a calling from God, and I've never been in that spot of pursuing something that I know God is wanting me to do, even if it's not easy. So we had a new family of 4 that we were adjusting to, and it was great. Our family of 4 soon grew to a family of 5 with our beautiful 17-year-old Elijah. And then Went back down to a family, grew to family 3, 4, and 5. Now we're back down to 4 because Cohen, he left, and it was an incredible season of we were getting to know a lot of people in the foster care system and social services, and it was really great. And now we're back to a family of 5. Yes, family of 5, with the newest addition, James, that he joined us about a month ago. And so we're extremely grateful for the paths that we get to take with our family. And our first goal and our calling is not adoption. It's not necessarily even foster. We see a need in our area for showing love to an area that maybe doesn't get as much recognition. So our first goal is to just be the hands and feet of Jesus to families that need it, whether that's in a social services aspect or whether it's outside of that. We want to be the hands and feet of Jesus to families who need it. Again, that could be building relationships with parents of children who come into our home, whether that's building relationships with our incredible foster care workers. They do not get enough credit. Thank you, Leanne. It may be loving kids in a way that they've never seen it before. And I want to tell you, and Meghan and Elijah can attest to this, our life isn't rainbows and unicorns, and it's not always fun, like this morning. And I'm going to be transparent. The past 3 weeks have been incredibly difficult. The season of life is really, really hard. And Dave mentioned this morning, it just seems like a lot of stuff has been going on the past couple weeks in our church family. And a lot of days we feel like we're failing as parents. We're trying to navigate the waters of parenting a teenager in our 20s and trying to help a 2-year-old who requires a lot of attention. And so it's hard. And it was funny, Elijah actually told us this last week, he said, y'all's parenting style is weird. And Meghan said, that's right. Like, we want to be set apart. We don't want to be status quo. We want to be weird because we err on the side of grace, and just because we know that's how, in the past several years, God has erred on the side of grace for us. So we want that grace to just overflow from us. And I say all that because I don't want anybody to think that we're saints. We hear that a lot. And I just want to tell you that we aren't saints. We're just following a calling that we can't ignore. We yell, we scream, we fight a lot of nights. And Meghan and I just cry because we don't know what we need to do next. But we're just normal people following a calling that we can't ignore. And I love that we're calling these stories because normally testimonies are things that happened in the past, but this story is happening and unfolding right before your eyes. So we're living this out right now, and although it's an incredibly difficult season, again, Meghan and I were talking this past week. Before we were happy, we were happy we had built an ideal life, but I cannot tell you the amount of joy that we feel now. I never really understood the difference between happiness and joy, but I do now. Joy is something that overflows to us. Happiness is circumstantial. Joy is finding the hope of Christ even in difficult seasons. And I will tell you right now, I cannot imagine or fathom our life any different than what it is right now. We love every single soul that comes into our house in a way I can't explain. And we just pray that our house is a place of refuge, whether that's a parent coming in and just needing to get something off their chest, whether it's an extended stay for that parent, whoever it is, we just pray that our house is a house of refuge. And we know that our family is diverse, but it is God that unifies us through everything. So I know this probably isn't the most encouraging story, but I wanted to be real and transparent. And it's probably not encouraging if you're considering foster care, but we love it because I'll tell you, it is something like nothing we've ever experienced before. All right, so I want to end just with reading a verse from 1 Corinthians, and Meghan read this to me last night, or 2 nights ago. It's 1 Corinthians 13. If I speak in the tongues of men and angels, but I have not love, I'm just a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so to move mountains, but I don't have love, I'm nothing. If I give away all I have and I deliver up my body to be burned, but I have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love doesn't envy. It doesn't boast. It's not arrogant or rude. Does not insist on its way. It's not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, and hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story. We are incredibly grateful for you all as a congregation that have just come around to send and loved us no matter where we are in our season of life. So we're incredibly thankful for all you guys have done.